we're live. Hello, everyone, and happy hump day. So this week, we have someone with us who has actually scaled to 8 figures, which is amazing and mind-blowing and not something we encounter ever over here. This is Jeff. Jeff sends it, and he is your favorite reseller's favorite reseller, as you will see as you look around and just watch people in awe. It's fantastic. Jeff, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
I was replaying your first show with Chris and Chris, the first Clear the Shelf show you were on there. And everybody knows and loves those guys. And hearing Chris in awe of your story and your business, it just like, man, when the big guys are asking questions like that, you know that you're a diamond in the rough. Fantastic. So how did you get started? Because clearly you did not shoot 8 figures overnight.
No, it was a slow build up. My wife was 9 months pregnant. I had like a 20-month-old also running around, and somehow stumbled upon I used to do a lot of like travel hacking. You're trying to figure out how to maximize credit cards to get rewards to fly around the world free. My wife and I don't think we've paid for a trip in 20 years. And it started with travel hacking. And some of the travel hackers started to get into, hey, buy, expensive laptops and flip them on Amazon. The electronics, the electronics fulfillment fee or sell one of the Amazon fees. I forget what it is, but it's only like 8%. So you can sell electronics pretty, you don't need that big of a jump in price and to make profit. And in their case, they weren't even trying to make profit. They were just trying to break even to earn miles to travel. And, I started to dig a little deeper into, I'm like, I don't want to do that to break even. But then some of the travel blogs led me to a few more that, hey, these guys were actually making money doing it. So that's what first introed me to it. And Sears had this thing. It was, if you got the Discover card, it doubled all your cash back, at the end of the year. Then they had a thing with Sears where you got 10% on, going through Discover deals, and you get 10% back. But you could buy you could buy a gift card and it would give you 10%. Then you would purchase with the gift card, so you get another 10%. So now you got 20% back, but they're then doubling at the end of the year. You're getting 40%. So I was getting 40% back on everything in cash back. And then on top of that, Sears, we used to sell a lot of like the Craftsmans because they were, exclusive to Sears, at least at that time. I think Sears has sold the brand. I mean, this was 10 years ago. Sears was still hanging on. And you get a lot of Sears points. So that's really where I first dabbled was, tools on Sears. It was a side hustle. I had a day job, and I would do this at night. I started with a combination of a lot of Sears, but I was doing some RA, and I did A to A. I found a Facebook group pretty early on. The travel hacking groups got me Googling, and I found a Facebook group, and they were doing a lot of A to A. So that's my first couple orders were A to A, Sears OA, and then I was going to like Walmart and Kohl's and Target clearance. And did that for a few weeks. And the quick thing I realized was prepping is not for me. So I, especially with a full-time job. So then I started to focus a little bit more on OA and got a prep center. Especially once I figured out if I buy this from Sears and I ship it to me, that's a $30 item. I'm going to pay, what is that? That's $2 in tax. If I ship it to a prep center, 0 tax, and I pay them $1.50. I'm like, I'm 50 cents, in the plus, and I don't have to look at this stuff. So that really got me into, wow, let me, OA to a prep center, especially when I was, doing the full-time job. So, I did it for 2 years, working the full-time job. I used to, get home at like 7 at night, put the kids to bed, and by 9 o'clock I'd be working. In Q4, I'd usually fall asleep in my garage at like 3 a.m. and then get back up at 6:30 to go to the day job and do it all over again. And it was a grind, but, it allowed me to, build the business, reinvest everything because, I had a decent job that paid the bills. So it was just, something to get me going. And, the wife, I said, was 9 months pregnant. So she was planning 6 months maternity leave. And then once she was ready, I was like, you don't have to go back if you want. This is working pretty well. Up to you. So she ended up leaving her career and staying home with the kids. That's my intro story.
That's awesome. So at what point did you say, all right, enough is enough with the day job. It's time to go all in?
Yeah. So, I mean, I was, I was very, compared to what you see on social media now, I was a very slow growth, at it. Like, I think, about a year and a half, we were hitting maybe 50, 60, K months, which are good. But you see a lot of these kids nowadays that come in and 3 months later doing 100K. Now, some of them then bankrupt a little bit later, but the point being, a lot of these people just bumped up, whereas I sort of grinded at 15, 30. I think we hit 30K our first Q4, but then it was a back day grind outside of Q4. So I was 18, 20. I was probably 20 months in, and I still was like, I'm not. It was just hard, especially because I was the sole income for two kids. I had a day job that was nice enough that it made good money. I had a sort of nobody blocking me for a nice career path. I had a nice corner office on 35th floor, and it was nice, but it also took me away from the house. I left the house at 7 and came home at 7. I barely saw the kids, so that was my general drive for it. But the big thing for me was, I think I was a senior director, and I had a manager that did everything for me, and he gave me his notice in the summer that he was leaving in September or something. I'm like, I am not training a new person in Q4. So that gave me the kick in the butt to finally to say, okay, I'm going to finally do it, because it was a combination of, hey, we were ramping up, and I think maybe hit some 70K months, getting close to 6-figure months, but I hadn't hit it yet. And I said, once he was gone, I was like, there's no way he does too much. That's all going to come on to me and training somebody. And that's what finally gave me to give them my notice and get out of there. Left my boss in a little bit of a bad situation since we both were leaving, but I was like, I'm sorry, I can't do this. So that's what kicked me out. But it was literally 2 years. I started like June, July, 2015, and then it was June, July. Yeah, I think June 30th, 2015 or 2017. This was my last day at the day job.
So that was before my time over here, but that was Keepa basically your only tool back then?
I mean, I used Keepa and reseller. Reseller came on. It wasn't like immediate. I can't remember how I survived before reseller, but that came in fairly early, I think, and that was a game changer. And then they didn't have tactical arbitrage, but that we had OA something, I forget what it was, but I mean, I've always been more fan of the manual sourcing anyway. So and Camel was a little more popular, but they did have Keepa, and that's really where I spent a lot of time, and then having reseller to be able to be my calculator.
God, I can't even imagine. That's like, I started, I think, right before SellerAmp came along. Yep. And that was hard, and I was miserable. And then SellerAmp came and was like, okay, well, this is easier for me.
Yeah.
And then I realized that I hated reselling just in general, because it feels like work, and I already have a job. So I can't imagine this, but I guess that not having those tools made you better, right?
Yeah, and I was more of a combination of not wanting to spend the money, but even when I tried it, like the tool, I always felt I could do better manually sourcing. I used some things like context menu search and some other ways to sort of speed it up a little bit, but I always found just going to a website and scanning the website, with Sears, what I used to do too is, you'd find people that were, once you start sourcing, especially my niche was, tools and Sears and, the craftsmen. So then you'd run into people that clearly that's all they source. Then I would just go to the store, source back to Sears. And there was a tool back then that I could sort of set alerts on Sears anytime the price dropped. So then, just wake up in the morning and say, okay, well, what item dropped today that I'm going to be buying? Because you knew, especially then suppressed buy boxes weren't a big thing at that point in time. So, you knew you could sell the Craftsman tools on Amazon for a decent price, and might get 20 sellers, but it wasn't like it is now where things may end up with 200 sellers at times. So, those were the tools I used was, manually sourcing stores and manually sourcing, the Amazon storefront, and then taking it back. And then I forget what the tool was called, but it was some type of like price. And there's some that still exist now, but this one was great because it worked very well. And anytime Sears dropped the price, I would just get an email and just wake up in the morning and say, okay, what have I got an email on, and just make some purchases.
So 20 or 30 sellers was considered a lot on a listing back then.
I feel like it. Yeah. I mean, Q4, sometimes you get some more with the 40 or 50, but it was not just different time. I mean, it was, 10 years ago when I started, especially at that point. And there's just not that many people doing it, not like it is now.
Yeah. I mean, that long ago, social media was still pretty much in its infancy.
Yep. Everything was on Facebook.
Yeah. There wasn't a guru in every corner. And
yep.
Yeah. Was drop shipping around back then too?
Yes.
People still trying to sell that.
Yep. Those were some of the competition with the Sears, of course, was the drop shippers, and pissed off that the damn drop shippers are on the listings, and because they could kill a deal. When the good thing is a lot of times we're buying it on a discount. So once the discount went away, the drop shippers couldn't really compete as well. But they were still around. I actually think Amazon, they still had the policy, but I think they enforced it a lot less back then. So I think there might even been more drop shippers back then.
The Wild West.
Yeah. So, no, like the gating wasn't a big thing. Like brands weren't restricted. Now there was certain, like, I remember I was restricted on like grocery, health, and beauty. And I think everybody was, but I just went to like CVS, Target, and Walmart, bought stuff, RA, sent up, stuff, and ended up, you got ungated, and it was more category restriction. I don't think they had brand restrictions back then. And
wild.
So it was some good times.
Yeah.
I wish I was a little bigger back then to take advantage of it.
So, okay. So you go full time and you continue to grow. At what point did you feel like you were really hitting your stride and you're like, okay, well, I really got this now. I don't ever have to worry about going back to a job that's not even a dream anymore.
Let's see. Hold on one second. Somewhere I have a little map here. So, so 2017, it was when I quit the day job and just trying to figure it all out. And we did a little over $1 million in Q4 out of a garage, me making all the buying decisions, me printing all the labels, and I'd have some help. But I didn't have to worry about going to work. So I was just hammering away. And, that was a big jump from, I think in 2016, before I quit the job, we did do 100K. I think it was 125 in December. It was our second Q4 big. So that was sort of start to get the wheels in motion of, okay, maybe we can quit the day job. And then that's when I said, my employee quit that does a lot of my work. So I was like, I gotta get out of here. So that was the first time. But then shortly after that, I've always been very good at hammering Q4. And it was like, okay, well, how do we keep that going? And that's where, especially because that was the first time where it was like, because I would just take off a lot in Q1 because I had a day job, right? So like I'd work insane hours, get a few hours a night sleep, and then December 20th would hit, and I would like not look at Amazon for a month or two, and just maybe not that much, but just take a little bit of break because it was a lot with the day job and 2 toddlers that didn't sleep. I started to figure out some RA at that point. I knew, I was pretty good at OA, but let me start hiring some RA. So I started to hire some RA folks. And at that point, wasn't sure exactly what I was going to do. I had, I started with just my one warehouse employee that she was good, right? She warehouse employee, my garage employee, I guess I should call her. She'd come to my garage, but then like during the day, she'd like message me and be like, "Hey, I found this item. Like, should we buy it?" And she was good at like hunting things down. So I was like, "Why don't I make you a sourcer?" But at that point, wasn't sure what we were going to really source, and that's when we started dabbling in the shoes and clothes, and hired her and trained her how to do like outlets, discount stores. And she did halfway decent, and then I was like, "Okay, well, let me get a few more locally." So we had like 3 in New Jersey. But then it was like, well, I can't hire anybody else because they're going to be fighting each other, right? So, I came up with the idea of hiring somebody like 90 minutes away. They would shop and then drop off at the drive down to the warehouse. And at that point, after that first Q4 out of the garage, that's when we got a warehouse. And we started to essentially ramp up RA. So I went from, just being all OA myself to building, a localized RA team. And I was like, okay, well, what's the next step? Let's hire a remote RA. So, in the peak, which was about 2019, we had about 10 RA sources between Florida, Tennessee, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, and they would, the local ones would, drop off, and then the other ones would ship back to me. And they'd buy, and they're all trained to source on their own. We'd try to help give them some guidance and whatnot. But, in 2019, we did 8 million. So that was good. We essentially went, 2017, we did 1.5, then we, 4 million in 2018, and then 8 million in 2019. We were just sort of doubling, reinvesting and building. And then, that obviously that was good, in 2019. And like, okay, I think we're going to be in pretty good shape. And, early 2020, I started to build out. Look, I want to spend more time with the family. That was the intention of this, right? Not me grinding 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's not what the intention is. So let me promote some of my, key employees and set up sort of like a leadership team. So 2020, we set up this team, and really my goal was to try to get me out of the business a little bit. COVID hit, and at that point we were heavy RA, but the stores were shutting down and whatnot. So we started to bring everybody in-house, not in-house, but giving them the option to do a OA and focusing more on OA when COVID first hit. There's still a lot of OA opportunity or RA opportunities, but that was just the way we ended up going, and we found some opportunities in the shoes and clothes OA world, and we just hammered it. Like we were. We were doing 2 million months with 70-80% ROI, selling shoes like crazy. It was just insane, like just absolutely insane. So that was sort of where, okay, we're good. We got this. I'm never working a day job again. And that's where just really right place, right time. Right, we slowly ramped up. Again, not necessarily slow. We were doubling every year, but we slow compared to where you see some of these Chad scalers and whatnot that just go from 0 to 4 million. Like it took me 4 years to get to a 4 million year, right? And a lot of people probably don't have patience for that. But we went from under 8 million to we did about 23 million in 2020, and that was just there was almost triple what we had done in the past, or it was triple, I guess, right? Yeah, there was triple, and the ROI was insane, and we had a small team back then, so our operating expenses weren't what they are now, and it was that was sort of like, okay, this is good, we're gonna make this work, whereas other ones you always sort of had a little bit fears something's going to go wrong and whatnot. But after that, it put us in good shape. And in 2020, I also, we did finally start pulling some money out, and I started a real estate company, in 2020 as well. We took a lot of money out of the Amazon business and shifted it into real estate between 2020 and 2021, when houses were a little cheaper and you get rates under 3%. So we were like, let's buy some houses and just start renting them out. So we shifted a little bit, while still heavily focused on Amazon, but diversifying a little bit.
Shit, hold on one second. Sorry.
Yep. Yeah. We've lost Ken. It's just me.
Sorry. Apparently the computer came unplugged somehow.
Oh, okay.
What's going on here? And yeah. All right.
Yep. I'm from Philly, right outside of Philly. I'm in Jersey. Got the Phil's game on, at least checking the scores on the background here.
And something crazy is happening. All right. I apologize.
Yeah, 4 homers tonight. Uh-oh. We've lost Ken now. Yes. Brian. Yeah, I know Brian well. I went to a few Sixers game with Brian, and one of the things that helped. I'm chatting with the guys in the comments.
Awesome.
But Brian's RA sourcing secrets is one of the things that really helped me kick off into the RA game. Was in his group and learning a lot from him and Perry and Elizabeth, if you're familiar with all them. And back when Brian was in the mattress game, I bought a mattress. My mattress at home is his as well. We all good on your end?
Right. We're good for now. It's my wife's gonna try to find me a cord. Apparently, this outlet just went dead. I need to plug in the computer.
Mm-hmm.
I think. All right. So anyway, back to where we were. So that was COVID time. When that was going on, did you feel like not only had the world changed, but reselling had changed? Did you see the uptick in sellers and expect the whole game to change at that point? Or did you think it was just a fluke and it would go back?
So at that point, the big thing I saw was a lot of people struggled. There was definitely people come in and they're killing it, right? Like you hear the stories of, the chlorine, the people flipping chlorine, and Lego itself went nuts, in Q4. And there's a lot of different categories. And what we saw is, when we were selling, a lot of the competition that we used to deal with, the RA folks were gone. There wasn't a lot of, I don't know if the inventory wasn't there, they weren't hitting it. But it just opened up a lot of the opportunities. And it was one of those things that was like, this is just too easy. Like, it was like, this can't keep up going that way. But in 2020, it sort of did. But then, 2021, things got harder. Some of the stores that we used to hammer started to tighten up. And you just saw more and more people. And then by 2022, the glory days were over, and there was a huge uptick in sellers. The sources had dried up. Again, still plenty of sources, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't the same. Like I used to go to a single store, I don't care because I don't really source anymore. But Rack Room Shoes was like a large portion of our business, and Off Broadway, which merged into them. We just would spend $300K over the weekend just buying shoes, and
Wow.
there was like the Nike torches or whatever. You could sell 100 shoes per size in a month. And it was just insane because there was such high demand, and because everybody had the government money coming in, and everybody was like locked in. So they were like, what am I going to do? Let me, I'm going to start running. I'm going to get active. So everybody was buying athletic shoes, and then we just had less competition, and it was a crazy time. And I had the right team in place. We probably had about 8 different prep centers during the peak because just nobody had the staff to handle it. So we were just, actually I think it was only 5, but we had a bunch we were sending to. We were just calling prep centers. Can you take some more? How many can you handle? Because it was just, crazy. And for what it's worth, our employees too, like they're just, I can't really do anything, and they're making boatloads of money. So they were working 15-hour days, hammering the sales when they came on. And it was just, it was a crazy time.
So that's 5 prep centers in addition to your warehouse?
Yeah. I mean, I had, we only had, at that point, we had I think I had 1,500 square, had a 2,500 square foot warehouse, but I was subletting it, I think, at that time. So I had 1,500, square feet or something. So I did not have a lot. And with COVID, as things ramped up, we weren't hiring. It was hard to hire people. Nobody wanted to work because they were collecting government money, right? So, so I only had, I think, 2 or 3 warehouse employees, in 2020. So, we just, they could do what they could, and the rest went to prep centers. We were MFing a lot in the beginning, or FBMing, I guess is what it's called. We always called it MFing, but early on, because you could only send the essentials, right? And shoes weren't essential. So we're doing a lot of FBM, and then they started to let you do FBA, but you had the ASIN restrictions on how many units you could send. And it was a pain to manage. But, part of that was we had a really good team that was good at cracking the code of knowing how much we could send in, figuring out how we could sort of have a little leg up on the competition of, I think getting to send stuff in. And then of course, the more we sent, the more we sold, the more we had the ability to send stuff in where others couldn't. And it just, snowballed. Eventually they started to, drop the reins, but for a while it was a pain just figuring out how to get inventory in.
And then not long after that is when they started changing all of the rules about everything slowly and steadily, right?
Yeah. And I mean, for me, the big thing, we had ramped up, and God, when was it? I think it was that end of 2020. We had ramped up, heavy, as I said. We think we did 23 million or whatever it was. And we had over 7 figures in Nike, and we got a brand review on Christmas Eve that took all the Nike off. I shouldn't say take all the Nike off. Luckily, there was a brand review on Nike, but it was capital Nike or something. So they only took down, I don't know, 20, 50 grand, but it still was concerning. And then they also hit us with Converse and Vans, I think, at the same time. So it was sort of oh boy, what's going on? We did get it sort of reversed in some time, but that was the first oh boy, maybe I shouldn't be 85% Nike. And prior to COVID, we were always fairly diversified, but when COVID hit, we found sort of we found a loop, an advantage, whatever you want to call it, that we just hammered, right? And it was, it was Nike. And then 2021, the summer of 2021, we got another Nike brand review. I think at that point we might have been down a little bit, but we still had, I only had 750K, but they took it all offline too. Like it all went, restricted. And that was a big sort of wake up call and shifted my mindset a little bit of, okay, let's diversify a little bit more. Let's not be 85% Nike. And also obviously at the time, things were tightening up a little bit, of making it a little bit harder to source, I don't know exactly when Miles and Warner started to get popular, but you can sort of see it on some of the listings where Nike used to have like 15 to 20 sellers, and then everything went up to like 50 to 80 sellers, somewhere in that 21, 22 thing where, we definitely had more, more gurus or, whatever you want to call them that, just, pushing, new sellers into the Amazon platform. And again, a lot of people did very well in COVID, and then they wanted to utilize, but it's a lot of work reselling. So let's utilize our sales screenshot and what we did well, and let's sell the dream of selling on Amazon. And so you had a lot of new people come in 2022. And yeah, it definitely got harder. Started to restrict some things. Now I have an aged account, so I didn't really run into many issues outside of the increased competition and just, stores getting harder to buy from. And again, you just didn't, for a while, sure, probably by 2023, I'm not even sure Nike was 5% of our business, right? Like it went from being so heavy to Nike to shifting to other categories. One of them, we always dabbled in Lego, but, somewhere around there was when it was like, okay, let's dive into Lego and let's start, investing into Lego, doing some holds, especially just trying to figure out how to manufacture margin that you couldn't get anymore, right? Like, 2020, 2021, not only were we putting up, big numbers, but the ROI was crazy. But you just couldn't do that anymore, at least not at a scale. But holding was a good way. Holding Lego was a good way to get your margins up. I didn't know what the heck I was doing at the beginning, and I was just buying any set I liked, and started to learn. But that was one of the things that I think pushed me a little bit into Lego.
So when you first started looking at Lego, and did you know that you were going to start holding, or were you thinking, all right, well, just maybe we'll drag till Q4, or what was your outlook there?
Yeah, I mean, even early on, I'd flipped Lego because I always flipped a lot of in Q4. I should say at least in Q4, right? I did a lot of I wouldn't say a lot of Lego, but I definitely did Lego. I did a lot of toys, is what it was. I was a big shoes and clothes seller year round, but come Q4, we would go heavy toys. And I remember back in the day, it was pretty early on, the first year or two, where there's some Jurassic World, Walmart exclusives that we would sell for good money. Toys R Us was still a thing back then, and you could make some good money selling some Toys R Us exclusives. I think there's a Duplo train set. Some of the things are scary to look back and like, damn, I can't believe I flipped that Star Wars set for so little. Now I should have held, but you just didn't know, right? So, but yeah, so I was flipping like a normal reseller, I guess you would call me, and then at some point I started dabbling, when I think more that 22, 23, I was like, oh, well, I could, let's try to do a little holding of Lego to get some margins. I don't know if you know John Cleater, but he's a big, Lego seller. And he started around the same time. So we've always stayed in contact and whatnot. And so I bounced some ideas off him and talked to him a little bit about it and get some ideas, but I still was like stupid, like, oh, there's a good deal on the Lego London set. Let me buy 300 of those, and I bought a lot of Central Perk sets, but like, I don't know, 2 years before retirement. I forget when it was, especially because it was coming off of COVID, right? Where you would see those keep out like, oh, that'll pop back up to $80. And those days were really not there. So I learned some hard lessons like I did throughout the reselling career, right? There's a lot of lessons a lot of failures to get to where I was, right? I glossed over the fact that to get to my RA team of 10, I probably hired 60 RA shoppers, and, had multiple ones try to steal from me and all kinds of, issues to get to where I was, but it takes work. Right. So same thing with the Lego investing. I was, and I tend to just act and figure it out later instead of, I'm not a over analyzer. I'm just, okay, let's figure it out. I'll invest and we'll figure it out. Even when we got into real estate, I just bought a couple houses and said, okay, let's see if I can figure out this Airbnb thing. I had no idea what I was doing, but we'll just give it a shot. But yeah, I mean, I made a lot of bad decisions and then started to, dial it in and say, okay, let's look at these retirement lists and let's, know there's some, risks with that, but, work some of that. And again, still you can buy stuff outside of, a retirement cycle, or, it may not be scheduled to retiring, but investing a little bit more wisely so that I wasn't just filling up the warehouse and most importantly, tying up capital, that was not going to, move for 2 or 3 years. So, so that's where I started to dial that in and start to, make a little better buying decisions.
So when you think of Lego now, do you, when you're looking to invest, do you specifically say, okay, well, I have this much capital that I'm going to allocate to investing, let's look for it? Or do you decide what you're going to invest in when you're already looking to keep a charts, regular reselling stuff? And
it's a combination, I guess. And lots of times too, it's the warehouse space where my warehouse manager, VP of warehouse is yelling at me. We have no space. Stop buying Lego. I'm always, it's hard to, turn off Lego, especially because growing up, I was not, really into Lego. I didn't, didn't have many Lego. I don't think I ever had a Lego set. I probably had the bulk bricks or whatever, or probably had a generic Walmart version, but I never grew up with Lego. And then my kids started to get into it, and that's what started to trigger me into, well, they like it, so why don't we start to invest it in a little bit more? Also, I was like, when I get a dirty shoe return, what am I going to do with it? Like, I throw it away, or donate it if it's not that dirty. But a beat up Lego, hey, I can bring that home to the kids and everybody's happy. So that was one of the things that really drove me into it, was the boys. My kids were getting into it, and enjoying building it and excited about the sets. So that got me into it, and then it sort of snowballed into, hey, I actually like. Why don't I actually build a set myself? So then I started to get into it and building, as well, and them, and it's been more of a family thing now. But yeah, I mean, nowadays I'm always looking, at any Lego item. Hey, can I quickly flip it? Because if I can get 30% ROI, 40% ROI now, then I'll do that. Is this a hold? And lots of times I'll do both, maybe buy 500 of a set and I'll sell 200 quickly at 30% ROI. And then I'll save the rest for, 18 months later to sell at a, hopefully more than the 30% ROI.
Yep. And do your kids ever try to shop your inventory?
Yes. That is always a problem. Much worse when was working out of the house, or doing more out of the house, I guess I should say. But yes, anytime they come to the, to the warehouse, they're always trying to grab something. The good thing nowadays is I stocked up so much, once we really started to get into Lego, I used a lot of I do a lot of A to A, so I earn a lot of Amazon rewards. And what am I going to do with my Amazon rewards? Let's buy some Lego. The same thing with your Lego itself, right? Like, you can get a lot of Lego insider rewards, put them to buy sets. So at some point we decided to, my wife wanted an outside kitchen and said, okay, but she wanted it covered. So I said, okay, well, if we're covering it, we might as well put a room up there, right? So we went from an outside kitchen into a Lego room. So we built a Lego room. And so, and the project took it took a couple of years, but at the time I was like, okay, I'll buy some Legos for the Lego sets. I should be careful saying Legos. For the room. So I bought a boatload. So most cases, the kids are pretty good with what they have. They have a nice backlog to build. But they are getting a little more advanced. And my oldest the other day is like, hey, I found this on Rebrickable. Do you mind if I take this set and turn it into something else? And, and watch it and say, hey, I see this set's coming out in August. Can you get this one for us? So getting a little harder. They now want all the new Star Wars sets because they're huge in Star Wars. And those prices are a little hefty at launch.
Yeah. And the next wave is really bad.
Yeah. They're some cool looking sets, but those prices are hideous.
Yep. Yeah. The, what are they calling that thing? The Juggernaut.
Yep.
Yeah. 160 for that. And all of the reviews, it just falls apart when you try to pick it up.
Yeah. That's not
brutal.
That's not good.
Yeah. There is a 2-pack that's going to come in that gets you a little bit of a price break.
Yep.
They call it a 2-pack, but it also comes with a Millennium Falcon poly bag.
Yep.
So I don't know why that's a 2-pack. At Walmart, they would have called it a 3-pack.
Yep. Yeah.
That's so somewhere. It might have been clear of the shelf. Was mention of an actual retail store.
Yeah. So
how does that work?
Yeah, at some point, a few years ago, we moved from that first warehouse, that had, I think, 2,500 square feet, and we moved into more of like a 7,000 square foot warehouse, and we outgrew that one. And there was, essentially a replica of that warehouse attached, but separated by a wall. So we ended up taking that warehouse and knocking down the wall. And, the front, it's like 7,000 or 7,200 square feet, but they have about like 1,000 square feet, office space, in the front. So we set up our offices in the first warehouse. So when we got the second warehouse, like, we need more office space. We don't need offices. And so we decided, hey, why don't we throw up a retail store? It can help for multiple things. One being it's a good way to move some of our inventory we can't sell on Amazon. And two, it will help. We do arbitrage a lot, but we also do wholesale. And it'll make those conversations with wholesale a lot easier when we can say, look, we have a retail store. Some cases when you're doing wholesale and you're trying to do brand direct, you reach out to somebody and they say, we only sell to people that have retail stores. Now, some of those, they only want you to sell in the retail store, but some of them, they don't give a shit. They just need to check a box that you have a retail store. So now we have a retail store. So it's not something that we've spent massive amount of time on it. And then because of the Lego holds and, my love for Lego, we've dedicated a large portion of the retail store to Lego. So,
cool.
We have a nice little section, and, when I buy stuff for a hold, lots of times I'll say, okay, throw 2 sets in the retail store. We have a wholesale account with, the authorized, an authorized distributor that only sells Lego to retail stores. The pricing sucks. I mean, it's not like, you get a better deal at Walmart, but it can be good for like new releases. It can be good to sometimes you can even find retired sets. There was times, I haven't seen it as of late, but you could even get like Target exclusives there off of them. I don't know how they were pulling that off, but whatnot. But I bought a boatload of the T-Rex Breakthrough Jurassic World Target exclusives from them back in the day. But so yeah, we have a little store. I have essentially we have a returns team that processes all our returns and does some selling on eBay And ultimately, when they're processing returns, they look at an item and say, okay, is this better for the retail store or is it better for eBay? And usually what it is like, say it's a, say it's a Nerf gun. If it's selling for $25 on Amazon, that's going to work better in the store. We'll sell it for $12. But if it's, some discontinued item that's selling for some crazy price, nobody's coming to the retail store to buy a $125 Nerf gun. So that goes to the eBay pile and is sold on eBay. So that's a lot of what they do. And most of our damaged Lego sets, we'll move them in the retail store because it's a strong, like, we don't need to worry about shipping them and dealing with, return selling on eBay. We'll occasionally throw some stuff, damaged sets on eBay, but for most cases, we'll just sell them out of the retail store because it's, it drives some traffic too, of getting people in and finding, a decent deal on something that all that's wrong with it is, some box damage.
Do you advertise for that store?
Yeah, a little bit. Like, we're in an industrial complex, right? So we don't have the beauty of, people coming in to it from a retail shopping center. So we got to drive some traffic there. But we do a lot of like post, the Lego sets on Facebook Marketplace, drive the traffic. They come in to buy, and they're like, "Oh wow, look at all this stuff!" And then that's sort of how we drive them in. And then we do what we call warehouse sales, like once a month. Sometimes more. In winter we won't do them, but because we do them outside, and we'll even like advertise on yard sale. Like our yard sale apps and yard sale Facebook groups and Lego Facebook groups. And, we hit a lot of the local, like, Facebook groups in general when we advertise. When I say advertise, not like paid advertising, we just, post, there and try to drive traffic into the store and whatnot. And then the hope is, especially the warehouse sales, get them in and say, look, yes, we have all the scrap that's outside, but we're open all the time. You can come, you can come at any time, especially if you're looking for Lego, and come get some Lego.
Are your kids involved in local sports? Do you advertise that way too?
No, my kids are. I'm saying no like that because, yes, my kids are, freaking play 3 sports a season usually. And I probably need to find a better way to actually advertise the store. But no, we haven't.
Just put a banner up in center field or an end zone or So, I think I've probably seen more ads sitting in the stands than I have kids actually play the game. Because the kids are out there just picking their nose anyway.
Yep.
Right? Well, it's dependent on the age, but Okay, here's a pretty good question. How long do you keep your Lego on each market retail location before you rotate it into one of the other selling avenues? Do you shuffle them around?
Yeah, that's a good question. Honestly, I'm probably not very good with that with the retail store. Because it's just such a small portion of our business. So it's sort of like, okay, throw these in the retail store. Let me know if it doesn't sell in 6 months, 9 months, or whatever. Like we're not moving massive volume in there. Like it's not like, I would say in 12 hours in Q4 is equal to the retail store's annual sales. Like it's just a small little bucket. So it doesn't get a lot of attention. So I'm not too, do not stress about it to an extent that I probably need to do a better job, and also do a better job of, I think I got resellers that come into our place and buy the sets that I lost track of that popped in price. So
your store's a honey hole.
Yeah, exactly right. We do advertise not for the Lego, but for other stuff. Like, hey, we got lots of bulk stuff. If you want to buy it, we welcome resellers. Like, come, like especially like eBay resellers. Like, we just there's certain things, we just can't like used Halloween costumes. We used to be huge in Halloween, costumes, not as much anymore because the return rates have got so bad. But like, I don't have time to open all these, clean them, sew them, and fix them and try to sell them on eBay. But there's people that will, so we cater to them and get them to buy boxes from us. and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, our main focus is Amazon. We sell on Walmart a little bit, we sell on eBay, but from an arbitrage perspective, at this point in time, if I'm buying something, and if I'm buying a Lego set, I'm buying it to sell it on Amazon. All the other avenues, are the retail stores just to keep some in there, and we'll pull it for Amazon if it doesn't sell. And ultimately, a lot what we do with like the retired sets, say it's selling for $300 on, we'll say $100 on Amazon. Well, I know if I sell it FBA on Amazon, I'm probably going to net like 70, 65. So we can price it at $85, and we're cheaper than Amazon. We're reasonably priced, and we try to make a little bit more than Amazon. And if it doesn't work, then just pull it from the shelf and throw it on Amazon, because we know on Amazon, especially if it's a quantity of 5, we can move it pretty quick. So
now, what's your thoughts on Lego with Amazon? Because from what I'm hearing, there has been another round of restrictions going out. Whatever, this is the 4th or 5th wave now.
Yep.
What are your thoughts there? Is that ever coming back, or is that done?
Which one was that? Did you say Lego or did you say
Lego? Yep,
yeah,
on
Lego.
Amazon.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly don't know what I assume that they will keep it, if you get gated, that you will have an opportunity at some point to potentially get back in. But I honestly don't know. I'm trying to get the wife out of the picture, but I guess she's gonna be over there. No, you're fine. You're streaming live on YouTube.
Yeah, it's.
But yeah, I mean, I do think it just sort of depends, right? Like, they've taken out a lot of brands from a lot of people, but I do think that they may open it up again. But your guess is good as mine. These things change, daily. I just got another email today of them further restricting some Nike stuff. It's their playground, and it's a good idea to be diversified to help minimize your risk when the gatings happen. And that's why one of the reasons I love Lego, right? You have so many different avenues, right? If I get restricted in a Nike, I think I got a Nike weight belt today, and like 50 of them. Like, not sure the best avenue to sell 50 Nike weight belts, but I know I can sell 50 of any Lego set fairly easy.
Yep. Yeah. It's I heard for the first time today of somebody needing to provide an invoice for 50 units Lego on Walmart.
Oh, yeah. That Walmart's not necessarily a greener pasture anymore either, right? Walmart used to be, oh, let's go to Walmart. That they don't have restrictions. They don't do this. And just overnight, they cut off 3 whole categories. And I should be laughing because I know it hurt a lot of people. We do very little on Walmart, but we actually had a lot in those categories. So most of our Walmart sales have disappeared right now. But we have letter of authorizations because it was mostly wholesale stuff that we're selling. So hoping we can get them back up, but it's a lot of lack of clarity over there of what's going on. Just talking to a buddy that just got suspended. He has no idea why and can't, just gets auto rejections. And yeah, it happened to me, I think last Q4 too. We didn't really sell a lot, but just one day went to log in. It's your account's been terminated. Why? What did we do? And never found out. And I think 2 weeks later it was unterminated. No email about the termination, no email about what happened. It just went to log in and you got some error message. And then some point, and it was not just an error message, it was your account's been removed or you're terminated, or I forget what the wording was, and never got an answer from anybody, and then never got an email. But one day we logged in and it was back open.
Well, that's one of the problems with being an early adopter of anything is not only are you trying to work the bugs out in your business and how you're going to deal with it, they are trying to work the bugs out of the system as well, and they're trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And if you got a ship as big as Amazon or Walmart, they turn very slowly.
Yep.
So you can't really expect things to get fixed quickly.
Yeah, it's definitely a bit of a, it's something that you just want to keep in mind with whatever platform you're selling and whatever product you're selling is, don't over leverage yourself, because you just don't know. It's not your playground. So it's a different story if you're selling out of your own retail store, which again, I know I can't get any volume out of, right? I'm not selling 500 of a Lego set, out of my retail store unless I'm dropping the price crazy to find some other resellers. But it can change overnight, and you want to try to minimize your risk while taking advantage of some of the opportunities that exist.
Yep.
And one of the beauties of Lego is it's one of the easiest ones to sell on multiple platforms.
Yeah. There's a reason it's the number one brand, the number one toy brand in the world. And this is the 10th consecutive year it'll be number one. It's a pretty good run. It does get a little sketchy here and there. I mean, it's the only brand I sell, and we're 6 figures deep in product, and I don't sell on Amazon or Walmart. So it's it has its moments where it gets a little scary, but it's never going anywhere.
Yeah. I mean, that just shows the demand too, right? Like Amazon and Walmart got to be, the two largest places that you would think of from a reseller perspective, especially somebody that's not involved with Lego, that's not aware of, like Bricklink and, other places that you can sell and how you can sell the parts and all that stuff. Like, it's just amazing the opportunities that can exist of moving the product that, you're not going to find with other product. That's just one of the reasons I like it. And one of the reasons, I'm, more on board with Wholes, because, holding a Nike product or holding another product is a little bit more scary, because God knows if I'm going to be able to sell it in 6 months on Amazon. And if I can't sell it on Amazon, where am I going to sell that product? But, if they restrict Lego, I'm not going to have a problem moving it. It might take a little bit longer, might not have the margins that I anticipated, but I'm still going to be able to get above face value for the set, almost guaranteed, especially if you hold them long enough.
Yeah. And the odds are really good. Even if you've only had a mediocre pick, it's gonna outperform just about anything else you're doing with slow moving money.
Yeah.
I mean, reselling high velocity stuff, sure, you can move your money a lot faster and grow faster that way. But for dust money, Lego's the ticket.
And it's a lot more fun to play with some Lego than some used shoes.
Yeah. It's, man, I don't understand. Like, so you must have had things returned from pretty much every category at this point, or at every category you've sold.
Yep.
Some of those returns don't make any sense, and they're weird and wrong products. We had bras returned. That was a little strange. We got mayonnaise sent back at one point. We used to sell a lot of mayonnaise, which was phenomenal. Yep. How do they even accept returns for that?
Yeah, no, I would say they're not supposed to take grocery returns, but I think a customer yells enough to let you. And it is crazy the amount of different things that'll get returned. You would, and even like the things you'll get like inauthentics on. Like I sold like a $12 Craftsman bottle opener, and then next thing you know, I'm getting an inauthentic complaint. And I'm like, who's complaining that I'm selling a fake bottle opener, for $12? Like, $12 wasn't my cost. I think my cost was like $2, and I'm selling it for $12 or something. It's just crazy. The amount, even especially back in the small and light days, you used to, we used to sell a lot of stuff back when small and light was big. It started at 15 and then went to 12, eventually went all the way down to 8 or whatever. But, in some of those, there's a lot of opportunity there, especially because it was it was not the small and light that exists now where everybody's auto enrolled. It was one of these things where it was sort of like you had to understand how it worked to get your stuff enrolled, send it to special warehouses. There's all these like little weird rules that kept some people out of it. So it could be a gold mine. But yeah, you get all these returns on $8 items, $9. I'm like, God. And yeah, the condition stuff comes back in. You got the, we sold, God, I think it was a ship in the bottle set. I forget, somebody went real elaborate. They shipped back the item, but they filled the box with like, it was a Lego set. I think it was a ship in the bottle. And they put in, God, I forget even what it was. It was like marbles, rocks, and like, stuff to make it sound a little bit like Lego, and had the weight, I guess, somewhat right. I mean, not that you even have to have the weight anywhere near right for Amazon to flag you, but you get that sometimes, dirty shoes that come back, and not just like, they wore it a few times, didn't like it. No, they wore it for 6 months and then somehow convinced Amazon to let them return it, even though the return window was closed or whatever. Or in some cases, I guess the return window used to be, it was October 15th to January 15th. So you get the people that buy the stuff, on October 15th, use it, use the heck out of it. We sold a lot of Halloween costumes. So we got a lot of people that would use it for, a Halloween party and then return it or use it for trick-or-treating and whatnot. I mean, it's ultimately one of the reasons we've pretty much got out of it, because it's just, Amazon has just, the returns have just got so bad. We used to be able to get through a season with 6 to 8% returns, and it just keeps growing, 12, 15%. And the returns, the fees just get more and more expensive.
Yeah. I think the one that blew my mind the most was getting back, I forget, I think it was a Nike shirt, but everything about the shirt was wrong. It wasn't the same color that went out.
Yep.
It wasn't the same gender. It wasn't the same size. It was just completely different. Like you send out a shirt for the husband and the wife's shirt comes back.
Yeah. You get that a lot with the shoes, where they'll send their old shoes in. So they'll get it within the return window, but they'll send their old version of the shoe. Or, I mean, in some cases they won't even, like they sold Nikes and they'll send you Reeboks and whatnot. And of course, Amazon never does anything. They just mark, customer damaged and ship it back to you. And then you gotta, fight with them to try to get reimbursed for the fraud that happens.
Yeah. And that's hard to justify for me, or it was.
Yeah.
But if I'm only putting 3 or 4 hours a day into the business, because day job, kids, whatever, side hustle, right? If it comes down to it, and you have one item that's, I don't know, $15 profit or something, how much of your life is worth actually fighting over that? Because it's almost more about the principles than it is about the money.
Yep.
And now you're into the $15 you're in for 90 minutes of your life.
Yep.
That's a complete loss.
Yep. Yeah, it's tough. And, I mean, it's something we ignored it for a while, but eventually outsourced it and have a team, and like, just it's a, I don't know what the word I'm looking for, like a morale, killer, right? You get that and you get so angry, and especially when it's like, it's a combination of a return or like an inauthentic. And, I quickly shifted so that all my return emails go directly to my deleted emails. I don't even see them. The returns team processes them. Used to take it so like, just would hurt me. Like, see, how did this return? And it was very difficult to deal with, which was like, let's let somebody else deal with it. Let me not even look at it. And at the end of the day, like, it's, as long as you're not dealing with certain categories, it's a small percentage, and you build it into your margins so that knowing that the returns are going to happen, and even if you do nothing, you're still going to end up on the positive side. And then, anything you can get with the returns. And that's sort of how we run it with our business. With, as soon as a return happens, it's written off of our, written off on our books, so that anything we get is just a bonus. You know, and the good thing with returns, you know, 40 to 60% for us, lots of times we'll go back to Amazon as new. And then, and I think we operate at about 6-8% return rate. So it's not horrible. You know, the shoes and clothes are what bad, you know, shoes are like 20, I think we're operating at 22% return rate. So it's, you know, it's a very difficult category to navigate because there's no way around it. It's just one of those things where people are going to, and I get it, right? Yeah, you need to try the shoes on, and you can't do it without buying it. So you buy it. Yeah, I mean, you got the people that will buy 2 pairs. Let me buy a size 7 and 7.5 and see which one fits me the best. So it's just the category. Amazon offers free returns for like no questions asked. So I just have to build it into margins and try not to let it kill your spirits.
Yeah. What were they called? Gatita or something, whatever it was. They're 25% or some crazy thing they took. I didn't even care.
Yeah.
Take your 25% because I'm going to do 0.
Yep.
If they don't do it. So that was worth it to me. And I don't know. I mean, maybe it was worth the effort to sending them, you know, invoices here and there, but even that was irritating.
Yeah.
With Lego, it's just fine. Send me the set back. If you steal half of it, that sucks. I'm just going to part it out and I'm never going to think about it again.
Yep.
And usually part out value is decent enough that, you know, it's with all the missing minifigures, it's still not the end of the world.
Yeah. Yeah. As I said, that's one of my, you know, with the Lego, I know when it gets returned, I'm still likely getting my money back, right? Like, you know, when I have a Nike shoe I bought for $50, I'm hoping I get 20 back, you know, in the secondary market. Whereas the Lego, if I bought a $25 set, I sold it for, you know, hopefully $60-$70 on Amazon, it comes returned, I might go sell it, you know, damaged in the store for $50. And as you said, I don't part it out, but if the set is so damaged they stole stuff, well, go to our personal collection of Lego or whatever. So it's you know, and again, it stinks, but knock on wood, it doesn't happen that much of like the fraud and whatnot. If you MF or FBM, the higher price sets, you got a little bit more control, and I think you experience a little less, you know, fraud. I've heard of Walmart's worse, that where there's, you know, more fraud, and Walmart, you're not like Walmart doesn't do anything. Like they're never gonna reimburse you for customer fraud. Yeah, I don't know how accurate it is, but that's what I've heard. I don't know if we've ever sold a Lego set on Walmart yet.
Yeah, the whole people of Walmart thing exists because it's real. You know, it's a different level of customer, I guess, than other places. I mean, and I don't want to just sit here and talk shit about Walmart customers. I mean, I shop at Walmart. They're 2 blocks away, you know, and they're cheap. But they're not high-end customers. And those are the people that return everything, right?
Yeah.
They go by and they're Velcro sneakers and send them back to you. You know, it's the Velcro's, you know, full of cat hair.
Yeah.
And that's all right. But I don't know. Well, I'm sure you must have encountered this by now. You sell a retiring set that is a good current flip during Q4, and then you get the return. It's retired. It's sold out everywhere. Now you're one of like 8 sellers, and the price is higher.
Yep. Exactly. That's one of the benefits is, you get the people that return it, and it's like, man, I'm going to sell this for more than I sold it the first time. Yeah. Which is, the beauty. And as I said, we do a lot of that in where, hey, we can flip it quickly in December, and then we'll flip some more, after, and then we'll flip the returns that come in too.
Yeah. That's a question that I get a lot is, when should I sell this? Is this the right time to pull the trigger? And people people get stuck in this spot where it's like, okay, if it's time to sell, they have to list all of it. Well, why not let a little go at a time? You know, it's nothing says you have to abandon ship right away. And
it is hard to find that sweet spot too of, you know, when to sell, but yeah, you don't have to sell it all.
Yeah. So try to figure out how to ask this question, right? What do you think the crossover point is for resellers if they want to start doing the investing thing? Because it's, in so many ways, it's the same thing, but with a couple little tweaks.
Yeah.
And
I would say the big thing too is just understanding the capital restriction with holds, investings, however you want to call it, because it's a very different game and obviously a very different cash flow, and even spacing, right? Like, you forget about that, but you can quickly, especially if you're working out of your house, you can fill up your house pretty quickly with some Lego sets. And so I think the big thing is understanding, okay, how much do I want to put aside, knowing, depending on what your target ROI and time frame. I mean, most cases, you're probably looking at a 9-month hold. You can sell, at bare minimum ROIs, right? That would make holding worthwhile. If you time it right, if you time the retiring sets right, you can flip them pretty good, even quicker than that. But, I would say you also have cases where, whatever you want to call it, the Amazon zombie stock, right? It retired in 2024.
Oh.
And I mean, there's plenty of those right now, right? That still have stock. I just bought one the other day, the A-frame, the Lego A-frame, right? Like that thing retired in 2024. And I think I bought it below MSRP, to start building it over here. So you just, there may be some indicators as you get better at this, but especially as you're new, there's no guarantee that a set that's retiring in 2024 is going to really retire, really be out of stock or out of print or whatever you want to, or maybe it's not being produced by Lego anymore, but that doesn't mean there's not 30,000 units, out in the wild. Yep. So you have to, be able to manage your cash flow and, realize that it's a different game than the quick flipping game, because quick flipping game, you're working on, in most cases lower margin, but you're flipping quicker. And, for us, it was sort of, hey, we want to, I enjoy Lego. We want to start investing in it a little bit. Let's take, a small portion of our capital and invest it into Lego. But, we don't want to go too hard, too quick, especially as I said, I went a little too hard, too quick on, bad decisions, looking at, oh, wow, look at, the Lego London set. That thing went from, $30 to, $60 real quick. And, in COVID time, and the next thing I was like, hey, that's not happening anymore. And hey, they're never going to retire that set. So
yeah, that one.
Did they say they're retiring it this year now? Finally,
yeah, that one in New York is finally going.
Yeah, so I think it's finally going. I sold it two Q4s ago. It went out of stock, and then there was the main listing went out of stock, and then of course, or I should say, Amazon went out of stock and they suppressed the buy box. So like an alternate listing. I don't know if it was like the Japan listing or like whatever. There was some sort of alternate listing on Amazon that was moving for, decent money, nothing crazy, but if you had bought them at like a decent price, you're at least getting 50% ROI. And I was, I think we moved 300 or 400 of them and got out of that, that position of having that one for multiple years. But that's where start slow and, understand the implications to your cash flow.
Do you think do you think it's hard to judge what's going to outperform a quick flip?
I mean, I think so. Like, at least for me, like I'm not, I think some of these guys like yourself probably, and, Toy Investor and, John, they're very good at probably identifying. But for me, it's like, well, this looks good. And then next, I don't have any A-frames, but like, you have these things where it's, the zombie stock lasts forever. And then even just, trying to do the math of like, okay, well, I could have flipped this quickly for 30% ROI, or do I wait, 4 months and flip at 80% ROI? Like, and of course you don't know when it'll hit, those target prices. So, but, I just like to, take, take the amount that we sort of allocate and, hope that I can flip them in 6 to 9 months nowadays. And some go a little bit longer, but we don't do a lot of like 2 to 3 year holds anymore. We try to keep it, hopefully within, a year to 18 months, moving it. Some will move quicker, take a little less margin, but, move them.
So interesting stat that I heard the other day. This was from Brian, Brick Domain, who's actually going to be on with me next week. In 2024, 61% of the 23 retirements were still available as zombie stock. 61%.
That's a large.
Yep. In June of 25, 59% of the 24 sets were still available as zombie stock.
Oof. Yeah.
Yep.
So
and in spicy quantities too.
Yeah. No, I mean it's hard, and you still also had some ones that popped really well as well. Like, there was a lot of ones that like, oh wow, should have got more of those. But then other ones that, you're still sitting on, oh man, Amazon's still in stock right around, I mean, not necessarily at my purchase price, but at a price that, still sitting at 20-30% ROI, if you bought it in December, 8 months later. So, but hopefully Q4 clear all that stuff out.
Yeah. What's your take on Black Friday sales with Lego? How you feeling about those?
I mean, I think they offer some good opportunities. Again, you're going to pick some winners, you're going to pick some losers, but we hit them usually pretty hard because what I would say is they're probably better for the quick flips, and some of them. But again, you never. Maybe I just don't know, right? Like I'm trying to think of with Walmart last year, like some of those cars. Like I think that they had some cars that they had the $50 sets on for $25, right? And they stayed in stock for a long time. But then the Office set, which is another good example of one that looked good, then looked bad, and now looks terrible. But like the Office, what did they have that for $60 or $50 for Black Friday? But they went out of stock really quick, and then the price was selling very well at $120. And if you're doing a quick flip, you could have made some good money. And then all of a sudden, here they come, and they're back. And they only have a little bit, especially if you check like Walmart quantity. Hey, they only have a few hundred. Let's buy them out. Buy them at retail at 120. You'll do okay. And then, they still had stock in July where they finally, put them on Prime Day deals or whatever, Walmart deals, whatever it's called, for $60 or whatever. So, but other sets, like Winnie the Pooh the year before, they put that at $50. If you got any then, you made bank, I forget what it was. I think was it a city like fire
the fire rescue plan.
That one. Yeah, I think that's the one.
Yeah.
Like that one went quick, and I think, performs pretty well, at least again, for the quick flips. We didn't save any of those for hold, but, and a lot of those you could buy and flip quickly for 20 to 40% ROI and move volume. But, those are ones where we will buy, I think it was the year before the TIE. I don't know. I forget how far back it was, but the TIE Fighters was one that did fantastic. The 25-hour TIE Fighters, and
they were so cheap.
Yeah. I mean, we bought, I think 800 of them or something like that. And just, we sold 400 or 500 in Q4, and then we sold 400 or 500, 6-9 months later. Some of them the following Q4 when they went up in price.
Yeah, that one actually really surprised me. So, with most of the Star Wars stuff, like the real staples,
yeah,
there's always one on the shelf, or you get a little gap, but you know another one is coming. So when the X-Wing and the TIE Fighter were retiring, it's Coop, who was just popped up here in the comments. He is the best Lego leaker in the game. Coop is amazing. And he had posted something about the X-Wing and TIE Fighter 2-pack.
Yep.
Which, in the first leaks, there was no word that it was going to be part of this crazy rebuild the galaxy thing.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, why invest in the X-Wing and TIE Fighter? Quick flips, whatever, fine. But why invest in them if you know that there's a 2-pack coming? And then this crazy rebuild the galaxy thing happens. The 2-pack is like a mashup convertible deal.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh man, that's a shame.
yeah, it helped for those TIE Fighters for sure. Yeah, because if that was just a straight up 2-pack, I'm sure it wouldn't have done as well. But yeah, I mean, it had such strong demand, and there's multiple listings and whatnot, and that one performed well.
Yep. Yeah, those leaks are a little tricky because until you get further along,
helped, right? Those guys deep in the Lego are like, okay, well, I'm not investing in that. I didn't see that leak, and I was like, okay, let's go. This looks good.
We try to stay pretty on top of that stuff. There's battle pack leaks for next year that will impact current holds, some things like that. It's like, okay, so I think it was 23. Walmart on Black Friday had the Hogwarts Express.
Yep.
And that was, all of the stars were aligning very well for that one. But like right then, as soon as the sale happened, it's like, oh, well, there's another one coming next year.
Here comes the next one.
Oh yeah. And the next one comes with, an extra building. It's a little bit more money, whatever. It's like, oh, come on. And then we got the gift of that and zombie stock and everything all rolled into one.
Yep.
I mean, we still made some money on it, but
tough. That's the good thing with the Black Friday sales too. I mean, your buy cost is usually so low that even if you're chucking away a loser, like you're probably not losing money, right? Like, especially at that price. It's when you're buying at retail, betting on on a stock to do well post-retirement, you have less wiggle room, right? But when you're buying it at Black Friday sales, that set's you're not going to lose money on it. You might not make, good money, or it may take a long time to hit it, hit some of your targets. But most cases you get it at such a deep discount, you're going to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, some of that stuff you can move, marketplace style and just sell it back at retail.
Yep.
And you're essentially doubling your money still.
Yeah, you're still doing well just because, there's still long demand. And, you can retire. Hey, it's a retired set. It doesn't matter. It's still zombie stocked all over the place. Doesn't change the fact that my advertisement will say this is, come get your retired set.
Yeah. And I'm a big fan of Marketplace. It gets so much hate because the people on there are flighty, whatever.
Yeah.
My wife's closing in on 400 shipped units on Marketplace. She's a trooper.
Yeah.
And there's been times it's looked like a McDonald's drive-through in front of the house.
We haven't done the shipping on there yet. But partly we use it right now mostly to drive the traffic with the hope of, okay, hey, you see this Lego set, come in and now let's look at all the other stuff we have and try to turn them into more loyal customers. So that's how we've been using it. But there's definitely some ability and advantage to also be shipping to customers from there.
It's that platform really had some potential, I thought, if they actually wanted to put some effort into it, and then they just never did.
Yeah.
it's I would much rather sell through Marketplace than Mercari or something. I hate Mercari. It is just, it's like a yard sale meets Instagram. I don't.
Yeah, we dabbled in it early on. I had somebody that did a little bit of Mercari and Poshmark, but yeah, the Poshmark was the worst as far as I was concerned, because you had to like stores, and like you were like trying to build a following and whatnot. And yeah, that was just a whole different ball game, but it had some advantage of selling some clothes there. But we focus more on eBay, Marketplace, retail store nowadays.
Yeah, I love eBay. They're normal people over there, and even the weirdos are like usually decent people.
Yeah,
It's a lot more community based, I think.
yeah, and it seems they're fairly seller friendly is the right word, but we've had a couple instances where people try to complain about what we sold, or whatever, fighting for returns or fighting. I don't remember what they're fighting about, but in all case, eBay's always sort of backed us in the instances that I've seen it happen.
Yeah, I feel like they're going to be fair with you if you are being fair in the first place. I mean, if you're treating it like a business and you're, a respectable human being, then everybody's going to be fine. It's when you come in as one of these dirtbag sellers that, you're shipping a Lego set in a cereal box, then you duct tape it shut.
Yeah, exactly.
They're never going to side with you.
Yeah. But yeah, you follow their rules, they'll side with you. Whereas Amazon, you follow their rules, they're going to still side with the customer, even if they do send you back a set with the wrong set, or steal all the minifigs out. We used to have some pretty good luck when that happened, but more and more nowadays they won't even reimburse when we can show that, hey, all the minifigs were swiped.
Yeah, that's a hard thing to show.
Yes, that is true. Hard.
Yeah, it's like, here's a pile of parts. Trust me, they're supposed to be.
There's no little people in there.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you got to take a picture of the manual. See, they're supposed to be in this bag.
Here.
Yeah, that's a tough one. We had a customer. God, it was a few years ago now, that basically wanted to rent a used set from us, or like they bought the set used, and then there were all kinds of accusations of problems and this and that, and we ended up taking the return, and it was very clearly a rental. Like they just built it and put it back, and and when it came back, it wasn't bagged the same way as we sent it out. It's like, okay. And then I don't remember how much time had gone by. It'd been a little while. And then we sold a friend's set, and somebody contacted us and like, okay, well, this is missing and this is missing. And it shows in the picture that it's there, but it's not in the bag.
Yeah.
And just, there was something bitchy about her delivery that just kind of put me off. And because of the past experience in my head, right away, it's like, all right, she's a douche and she's just trying to rip us off. Now I feel bad about it because she was completely right. And had to find everything. I mean, thankfully we have a fair amount of selection, so we can usually source the parts and get them back out. So she ended up with all of her stuff. You get a bad experience, and you just get that bad taste in your mouth.
And especially you alluded to it, the delivery, right? When I have a customer that says, hey, and just like, hey, it appears you've shorted me, can you help me out? But you get the people that immediately start attacking you and calling you your names and stuff. I'm like, nope, you're not getting, I'm not giving you anything. You'll have to talk to Amazon. Maybe they'll give you something, but I'm not giving you anything, not with that attitude, But, if you come, again, we make mistakes, things happen and whatnot, but I don't care who made the mistake. If you're coming to me with that attitude, I'm going to do what I can not to get you anything, because there's no need for, just being nasty because something didn't go your way and there was an error with your order or whatever. Just deal with it. We'll make it right if we made a mistake. And if you didn't like the product, it's not my fault. That read the reviews.
Yeah.
Not really happens with Lego sets, but that's something that happens more with shoes and other stuff.
I don't think a lot of people realize that we are not the manufacturers of these products. We don't manufacture them. We don't package them. We don't advertise them. We don't ship them.
Yeah, especially with the Amazon FBA. It's like,
yeah,
they'll get so mad when we say, "Oh, you got to contact Amazon. We're not responsible for that."
Yeah.
What are you talking about? You sold me the product. Don't you stand behind your products? I'm like, talk to Amazon.
Yeah. I mean, if you're using a prep center and you're all OA, it's entirely possible that you never see or touch any of the product at any point in time.
Yeah.
But you're the villain.
Used to be very common back in the day of, the international folks that would, they would never see it. They just do OA to a prep center. I feel like a lot of the international accounts have got hit with some of the regates and the restrictions and stuff. I think there's still plenty out there, but yeah, I mean, there's definitely sellers out there that's probably never touched the product. They don't even get the returns back to them because they can't. They're in Brazil.
That's so crazy. Who was it that used to show up on podcasts all the time? Maybe he still does, and I don't see him. Was it what was his name? Romer? Is that his name? Something like that. He was on with Miles a couple times, kind of in that age group, I think. And like, I forget where he moved to, but he just like took off and was. I don't know if he was homeless or couch hopping or what his deal was, because he was like in that age group, I think, and he could just leave. And his business was tight enough, just everything to prep. And, it's single guy, beach life, that kind of thing.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. The digital nomad lifestyle.
Yeah. I mean,
I see that with some of the people that came over with me with like the travel hacking. Like, I see that like they're just traveling the world, reselling now, right? They started like me with their like in the traveling and just churning credit cards and other ways to earn points and miles, and now they turned it into a resale business, but they still do the traveling all over the world while they're doing it.
Yeah, it's awesome. There's so many ways to make money and live a good life.
Yep. It's amazing what's available now.
Yeah, you're going to get a DM from somebody after this telling you that you're wrong and OA is dead and your model's going to fail.
Yeah, it happens. And it's good to be diversified across multiple. We do OA, we do RA, and we do wholesale. Split it all up.
Yep. And you can win with any and all of them.
Yep. Mixing some Lego holds. So 8A, all kinds of good ways.
Yeah, 8A is very interesting to me. I mean, now that we're living in the buy box, seeing a little bit more of that.
Yes, you're now in the buy box.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, it's very interesting over there. Yeah.
Yeah, I was happy to see you guys over there because I hadn't got into where you used to live, I guess we'll call it, but I'd been in the buy box, and I was like, I'm gonna spend some more time in here now that you guys are hanging out.
Yeah, it's we tend to be a noisy bunch. I noticed that the buy box is very tame. Everybody's over there, they're doing their thing. It's a lot of business. Don't get me wrong, everybody over there is great, and every interaction I've had with everybody has been fantastic. But it's business. People are there for business. And we tend to just be noisy and do all of the Lego things that we do. We're really good with morale, I think. we have a lot of fun. So we'll see if we can spice up our little corner. Q4 is going to be a riot.
Yeah, should be fun.
It'll be good. All right. Well, it is 9:30. I want to be respectful of your time here. This has been awesome. Thank you so much for hanging out tonight. It's we see all of what you post, and there's not enough Lego content out there. People don't look to you as the Lego guy. I think the numbers throw them a little bit. So now they can see that Lego is part of your business too, and I love that, because you're not too big for the toy.
No.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it.
Yeah, it's been fun.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you again. Everybody in chat, next week we have on Brian of Brick Domain. You should be familiar with him if you are on YouTube and scanning around for Lego stuff. Brian's been everywhere. He's been on with us in the past. He's great. And I will be coming live from Florida. So hopefully everything sounds and looks all right as far as we can actually get, because, we're professionals with sound and lighting over here. But all right, everyone. Thanks for coming. Thank you again, Jeff. We'll see everyone next week. Good night.